Hello students, welcome to today's class. We'll be talking about a topic called diseases of crops 1. Now, crop diseases have been a major challenge in crop production, and there have been a lot of economic losses as a result of this. It is good farming practice to examine crops in the field regularly so that any disease attack is detected early before great harm is done. Hence, it is necessary to have a good knowledge base of crop diseases. We will get to know more about this in the topic, diseases of crops. And by the end of the lesson, you should be able to state the meaning of disease, highlight the causes of disease, and list the diseases of major crops, stating their symptoms and control measures that will be taken concerning these various diseases of major crops. So let's start with definition of terms. We're going to start with disease. What is disease? A disease is defined as a deviation or departure of a plant from the normal state of health, presenting or showing marked symptoms or outward visible signs. So once a plant, there's a deviation from the normal state of health of a plant, and such deviations, you're able to observe some marked symptoms or some symptoms or outward visible signs that will tell us that a disease is present. So a disease is defined as a deviation or departure of a plant from the normal state of health, presenting marked symptoms or showing outward visible signs. Now let's look at pathogen. What's the meaning of pathogens? Pathogens are disease-causing organisms which pass through a regular cycle of development and reproduction. So disease-causing organisms are simply called pathogens. Now let's look at diseases of major crops. And we're going to discuss this in details, but let's just have an outline of some diseases of major crops. Starting with cereals, we have smut, we have rice blast, to mention a few. We have legumes, Cercospora leaf spot, we have rosette, which affects groundnut. Then we have beverages. We have diseases like cocoa black pod disease. We have coffee leaf rust disease. For tubers, we have cassava mosaic disease. We have bacterial leaf blight. There's still others, just to mention a few. For fruits, we have citrus gummosis, and that affects citrus plants like oranges. Then we have dieback disease too. For fiber crops like cotton, we have black arm, which is a bacterial blight of disease of cotton. For vegetables, we have root knot disease of tomato. We have root knot of okra too as well. And for stored produce, we have molds. So these are some diseases of some major crops. So let's go into details now, discussing the diseases of major crops, starting with cereals. So for cereals, we'll look at maize. And for maize, we have some diseases that we're going to look at. We have the maize rust, which is a fungal disease, and the botanical name or scientific name is Puccinia polypsora. We have leaf blight, which is another disease of maize, and it's a fungal disease, Hematospora maydis. We have maize streak, which is a viral disease caused by maize streak virus. We have maize smut, which is a fungal disease caused by Ostiligo zeae. Then we have leaf spot, which is a fungal disease, also Physoderma species. So we're going to look at these diseases in details, look at their causal organisms, how they are transmitted, look at the symptoms they show, and how to prevent and control these diseases. So you take a good look at the picture and you can see that this helps to describe these diseases. So for Puccinia polypsora, which is maize rust, is caused by fungus Puccinia polypsora, and it's transmitted by air. So it's airborne spores are deposited on the leaves, and the symptoms shown here are brick brown or red spots on the leaves, as you can see in the picture. Then there will also be reduced yield and death of crops, and it can be prevented by making use of resistant varieties of crops, of maize crops, and you can also destroy affected plants. Early planting will also go a long way to help control this disease, and the use of appropriate fungicides, for example benlate, will also help to control this disease. Next we have is maize blight. It's a fungal disease, Hematospora maydis. and it's transmitted by rain splash and by wind. And the symptoms here you can see is formation of lesions, which are like wounds on the leaves of the affected plant. You can see the lesions that are formed on the affected plant. And how do you prevent and control this disease? You use resistant varieties. These are certain plant varieties that can actually resist this disease so that they are not affected by the disease. You can also apply fungicide, a copper-based fungicide. We have maize streak. Now, maize streak is a viral disease, and usually viral diseases of crops are transmitted via insects. So the mode of transmission of maize streak disease is by insects, particularly leaf hoppers. And the symptoms here are yellow streaking of leaves. You can see the leaves, yellow streaking like stripes on the leaves, patches, some color discoloration, yellow streaking on the leaves. There's also deformation of the crops, and there's also reduced yield. And how is it prevented and controlled? You can use insecticides, because remember, it's transmitted through insects, so you need to get rid of the insects vectors. And another way is to cut and burn the infected plants. Early planting will also go a long way to help. You can also use resistant varieties as well as clean seeds that are disease-free. We have maize smut as another disease that affects maize, which is a fungal disease caused by a fungus, Steligomaedes, and it's transmitted by wind, or you can say airborne, and the spores are deposited on the fruits. Now, the symptoms are the grains, the leaves, and the tassels are covered with a large mass, or which is also referred to as galls, or a large mass of black spores. If you look closely, you can see that the grains, they are covered with a mass of galls, which are black in color. If you can take a look here, you can see it here. Now, how is it prevented and controlled? You need to uproot the plant, you need to burn them, and you can also make sure you use healthy seeds while planting. Let's go to another cereal, rice. Here we have some diseases, rice blast, which is a fungal disease called Pericularia oryzae. We have brown leaf spot, with fungal disease caused by fungus Cercospora oryzae. Rice leaf blight is also caused by fungus Xanthomonas oryzae. We have rice smut disease caused by fungus Teletia horrida. We have rice leaf smut, a fungal disease caused by Entoloma oryzae, caused by fungus Entoloma oryzae. We have stalk rot or root rot caused by a fungus Pythium aphanidematon, or Pythium aphanidematon. This disease, the name of the fungal disease that causes stalk rot or root rot disease. So we're going to look at these diseases in details. Starting with rice blast, it's caused by fungus Pericularia oryzae and is transmitted through wind and also infected soils. Now, the symptoms you observe is red spots on the leaves. As you can see, the leaves have red spots. There's also discoloration on the heads and spikes. The spikes also lose their normal shape. These are parts of the plant that you observe. The heads are where the grains actually develop of the rice. So you can see there will be discoloration there. Then the grains also will not feel. You see the grain, but actually there's no feeling inside. You know, seeds have parts. Seeds have what is called the endosperm, which is like a food store. And then that grains now, that food store will be empty. So the grains will not feel. Then the seed development will actually stop. Now, how is this prevented? You use resistant varieties. You should also plant mold-free seeds. Now, of course, when we talk about mold, that has to do with storage. When you store your grains and they are attacked by mold, so you have to ensure that you use mold-free seeds and avoid damage to seeds. Harvest early can also help, harvesting early. Then, of course, moldy pods should be burned. Then you can also treat the seeds with fungicides. So let's look at another disease of rice, which is called brown leaf spot. Now, this brown leaf spot is caused by fungus Cercospora oryzae. Now, you can see the picture to help us as we're describing the symptoms. Now, it's transmitted by rain splash and wind as well. And the symptoms here are small narrow brown spots appear on the leaves. You can see the small narrow brown spots appear on the leaves. Now, how is this prevented and controlled? You need to understand that you should plant resistant varieties, which is one of the key ways to prevent an or disease attack. Plant resistant varieties, that genetically the variety cannot be affected by this disease. So that has to do with breeding. Of course, plant scientists help to do that, breeding varieties of crops that are actually resistant to certain diseases. Then you could uproot and burn infected plants, as well as burning of crop residue before you plant subsequently. After harvesting, make sure all crop residues, that's the stalks that are left and the little stumps or stalks that are left on the field, you should make sure you burn them before you now carry out planting the next farming season. We have rice blight, another fungal disease. So it's a disease that affects rice caused by fungus Xanthomonas oryzae, and it's transmitted by airborne spores as well as rain splash. And the symptoms here are longitudinal red or yellow spots seen on the leaves, which leads to poor yield. You can see the longitudinal red or yellow spots seen on the leaves, and it's prevented by avoiding the use of heavy nitrogen fertilizers. You should also use resistant varieties, and you can also uproot and burn infected plants. Next we have is rice moth. This is a fungal disease, so it's caused by fungus Tilatia horrida. Now, this disease is spread by wind, and the symptoms here you can see is the grains. Look at the grains. Now, this is the head. This is the head of your rice. The spikes are all here. This is the head of your rice. Now, you can see that the grains, all of this is the head of the rice. Now, these grains, you can see mass, a mass here. This is it. This is the mass we're referring to of black spores. So this is a symptom that you see in a rice field that is attacked by a rice moth. And of course, you can see that moth also affects maize too, as we mentioned earlier. So we also have it here attacking rice. Now, how is it prevented and controlled? You need to ensure that you use resistant varieties as well as applying appropriate fungicides. Rice leaf moth is another fungal disease, and it's caused by fungus Entyloma oryzae, and is transmitted by wind or by airborne spores, as well as rain splash or through irrigation. Now, the symptoms here are angular black spots, which are seen on the leaves. You can see from the picture there, see the angular black spots on the leaves, and is prevented by seed treatment, as well as the use of resistant varieties, as well as applying appropriate fungicides. Now, let's look at diseases of still on diseases of major crop. Let's look at legumes now. We're done with cereals, so let's look at legumes. Now, cowpea is a leguminous crop, and it has certain diseases that affect it. We have the mosaic disease, which is a viral disease. We have leaf spot, which is caused by fungal disease, Cercospora leaf spot. We have leaf spot, Cercospora leaf spot is another disease that affects cowpea. We have bacterial blight, which is caused by Xanthomonas bignicola. Then we have nematode disease, which is caused by nematodes in the soil. We also have damping off, which is caused by fungal disease, Pythium species, and Phytophthora species. Now, let's look at still talking about legumes. We have groundnut. Here we have groundnut rosette disease, which is caused by a virus. We have Tika disease or Cercospora leaf spot, which is caused by a fungus, Cercospora personata. We have aspergillosis, which is moldy seeds caused by fungus, Aspergillus flavus. We also have groundnut wilt, which is caused by fungus, Fusarium oxysporium. Okay. So let's look at these diseases in detail, starting with cowpea before we move on to groundnut. So cowpea mosaic disease is caused by a virus, and remember I mentioned earlier that viral diseases are usually spread through insects. So here we spread by piercing and sucking insects, usually aphids. And here the symptoms are the stunted plants with yellow leaves with mosaic mottling. You can see the yellow leaves with some mosaic and mottling on the leaves. And it's prevented by early planting, when you plant early enough. And you also practice crop rotation. Of course, in agriculture, you should be able to understand what crop rotation is, where you plant crops in a definite sequence on different fields or plots of land. So whatever you plant this season, the crop you plant this season, next season on that same plot, you change the crop you plant on that season. This helps to break the life cycle of this disease. But this disease has a cycle, and so once the crop that is susceptible to such disease is no longer on that field, the cycle of such disease is usually broken. So crop rotation can help to prevent and control this disease. And remember, the insect pests also, which such disease and plants are susceptible to, will no longer have such plants to attack, thereby spreading the disease. So you see, crop rotation actually helps to break the life cycle of both the disease and the insects. Okay, now we have roguing and burning of affected plants. Roguing is actually to remove, when you uproot and burn affected plant, that's roguing. That uprooting of diseased plants is called roguing. You understand? So you rogue and you burn those affected plants. Then you can also use resistant varieties. Now we have leaf spot, which is caused by a fungus, Cercospora leaf spot or Cercospora species, and is transmitted by wind. And the symptoms here are reddish brown spots on the leaves. You can see the reddish brown spots on the leaves. There could also be chlorosis or yellowing of the leaves. If you can look closely, you can see some yellowing of the leaves. There's defoliation, which is also known as dropping or falling of the leaves. The leaves tend to fall from the plant. Then there's also drastic reduction in the yield. Now, how is it prevented and controlled? By early planting. You should also plant resistant varieties. You can also ensure that you plant clean seeds, that are disease-free seeds. Then you should also practice good field sanitation. Ensure that weeds and debris are all cleared from your field. And spray appropriate fungicide. Also practice crop rotation. This can help to prevent and control Cercospora leaf spot disease. We have bacterial blights, which is another disease that affects cowpea, and is a bacterial disease, Xanthomonas being vignicola, and is transmitted by wind or direct contact with pathogens with healthy plants. Now, the symptoms here are tiny water-soaked spots on the leaves. Of course, then we have death surrounding tissues. You can see, as you can see, these tissues here are dying. Then there's appearance of dead spots also. See dead spots. There will also be low yield. Now, how is it prevented and controlled? You use resistant varieties. You should also treat seeds with chemicals and also burn plant residue. Remember, after harvesting, the remaining parts on the field, which are the stalks left on the field, you should ensure that they are burned before the next farming season. Nematode disease, another disease that affects cowpea and is transmitted by piercing and sucking insects, aphids, and it causes stunted plants. The plants become stunted. There will also be yellow leaves with mosaic mottling. When we talk about mottling has to do with the size of the leaves, size. So you can see yellow leaves here, mosaic mottling. Some of the leaves are small in size. Then you prevent it by early planting, crop rotation, rogue and burning of affected plants. Then you should also ensure that you can use resistant varieties. So these are the challenges that some of the diseases that affects the cowpea. Even though, yes, nematode diseases can also be seen in the roots too of this. The roots are also affected by this disease. But basically, these are the symptoms that you observe when you talk about nematode disease. Okay, so for the groundnut rosette disease, it's caused by virus, and here it's transmitted by piercing and sucking insects, which is aphids. You could see there's the stunted The plants are stunted, the leaves are yellow with mosaic mottling. You should also plant early, carry out crop rotation. You can also rogue and burn affected plant and use resistant varieties. These are the ways to control groundnut rosette disease. Now we have thicker disease, which is also Cercospora leaf spot that affects groundnut. It's a fungal disease, Cercospora personata, and it's transmitted by wind or air. And then the symptoms here are that there'll be yellow leaves with dark brown spots on the undersurface. You can see the leaves are kind of yellow with some dark brown spots on the undersurface. Now, some portions are yellow, not actually the whole leaf, if you look closely. Okay, then the leaves also fall, or dropping of leaves or defoliation, and it's prevented by early planting, carrying out crop rotation. You could use resistant varieties, and you should also carry out farm sanitation. Next we have is aspergillosis, which is mold or yellow molds of groundnut, and it's caused by fungal disease Aspergillus flavus, and it's transmitted through the soil. Now the symptoms here are yellow or green coloration of seeds. You can see, if you look closely, you can see green colorations, in some cases yellow coloration of the seeds, and the seeds may appear moldy. Look at them. Okay, see the seeds appear moldy. I see there are molds on it. Now it's prevented by planting mold-free seeds, and you should also avoid damage to seeds, carry out early harvesting, and you should also burn moldy pods. These are the pods, the casing of the groundnut. You should burn them and apply fungicides, appropriate fungicides. Groundnut wilt is another disease, a fungal disease, Fusarium oxysporium. Is transmitted through the air, so it's an airborne disease. And the symptoms here are death of seedlings during wet season. Imagine the seedlings end up dying during wet season when they should be thriving. That's a sign of groundnut wilt. You can see this seedling here now is dead. It's dead. You know. Then there's yellowing or stunting of older plants. Then you can also see dark brown lesions, which are like wounds, on the hypocotyl. This is the hypocotyl here, which extends above the soil. Look at it. See, if you look closely, you see dark brown lesion, which is like a wound here. So that's a sign of groundnut wilt. And how is it prevented and controlled? You need to apply appropriate fungicide. Now let's go to beverages. Still on disease of major crops, beverages. We have cocoa as the beverage we're going to look at here. We have swallow shoot disease, which is a viral disease, cocoa swallow shoot virus. We have charcoal pod rot, which is a fungal disease, Botrytis diploida theobromine. This disease, charcoal pod rot, caused by fungi, Botrytis diploida theobromine. Then we have cocoa black pod, which is a fungal disease, Phytophthora palmivora. So let's start with the swollen shoot of cocoa, which is caused by virus. And remember, viruses are usually transmitted by insect vectors, and Plasmococcoides ingelensis. So that's the name of the insect, Plasmococcoides ingelensis, and is also transmitted by mechanical inoculation and also by grafting when you're actually trying to carry out a form of asexual propagation, which is grafting. This can also be a means through which the disease can be spread. Then the symptoms here are swelling of young stems and roots, and also round mottled pods. Remember, mottled has to do with the size, so the pods are usually small and round, so that's a sign of swollen shoot disease of cocoa. Now we have charcoal pod rot, diploida pod rot. It's usually severe during summer. Now it's caused by fungus, Lasiodiplodia or Botrytis diploida theobromine, and it's transmitted through rain splash. And the symptoms here are dark brown spots are seen on the pods, which spread rapidly. Now the beans inside the pods may not develop fully. Now, how is this prevented? You need to destroy infected pods. Then you should also properly prune off cocoa tree, and also carry out proper spacing, and also use appropriate fungicide like Bodex mixture and mancozeb. Cocoa black pod disease is a fungal disease and is caused by fungal Phytophthora palmivora, and you can see it's transmitted through rain splash as well as insects and running water. And the symptoms here are, you can see that small brown spots on the pod which spread until the whole pod is covered in 4 to 18 days. So you can see the symptoms. The pods are small and you see, and it's spreading with this discoloration. They say the pods become black and dry, and this spreads till the whole pod is now black and dry in 4 to 18 days. Okay, so let's look at coffee. Now, coffee here, we have leaf rust as the disease caused that affects coffee and is caused by fungi, Hemilia vastatrix. Hemilia vastatrix. Now here we are going to look at it in details. It's transmitted through rain splash as well as wind. And the symptoms here are the yellow or brown spots are seen on the leaves. We have orange powdery mass on the leaves, and there's also reduction in yield and dropping of leaves. Remember, appropriate fungicide will help to control this disease. Now let's go to tubers, still on diseases of major crops. Here we are talking about cassava. We also look at yam. So cassava, we have African cassava mosaic disease, which is caused by virus, cassava mosaic virus, CMV. Then we also have brown leaf spots, which is caused by fungi, Cercospora hinensis. Then we have the leaf blight disease caused by bacteria, Xanthomonas manihortis. We have cassava witch broom, CWB, which is caused by fungi, Phytoplasma or Basidiomycetes. Okay, we have another disease, African cassava mosaic disease, ACMD, which is caused by virus. I remember I said earlier on that viral diseases are usually transmitted by insects. So here the mode of transmission of this disease is by white flies. And also infected plant cuttings. Remember, cuttings are the propagative materials by which cassava is usually cultivated or sown. And these cuttings are usually cut to like 10 to 15 cm and then planted at an angle of like 45 degrees. And these cuttings have to be disease-free. So, but let's move on to the symptoms. We have vein clearing. What does this mean? Loss of normal green coloration of plant veins. Now, remember, when you look at the leaf of a plant, we have a midrib. And in some cases, for compound leaves, we have simple leaves, we have compound leaves. You have the midrib, you have veins, you have veinlets. Now, when there's a loss of the green coloration of the plant veins, and this plant usually turning yellow, you can see that's a sign of vein clearing. And there's also distortion of the leaves. You can look at these leaves, they don't look healthy, they don't look in order, they're distorted. There's also stunted growth of the plants. Now, how is this controlled? You grow resistant varieties. You can also uproot and burn infected plants, which is referred to as rogging, and also use disease-free planting materials. Now we have bacterial blight disease or cassava bacterial blight disease, which is also referred to as leaf blight disease. It's caused by bacterium Xanthomonas manihortis. And you need to understand that this disease is transmitted by infected or through infected cuttings, which is the propagative material for cassava, as well as rain splash, insects, and tools as well, simple farm tools that are used. Okay, now the symptoms here is angular or water-soaked area of discolored leaves. You can see this leaf looks water-soaked. These are angular and water-soaked discoloration of the leaf tissues. There's also blighting, which refers to rapid and complete chlorosis. And what does chlorosis mean? Insufficient chlorophyll. So there's rapid and complete chlorosis, that is blighting. And if you can see this leaf, it has lost the green pigmentation. It is no longer green in color. Then browning and death of the plant. You can see browning. You can see browning of this leaf and eventual death of plant tissues. There will also be wilting of the plant. That's loss. The plant loses its turgidity and erectness and firmness. It kind of droops that's wilting. Then there's also reduction in yield. And how is it controlled? You need to use resistant varieties, use clean and disease-free stem cuttings, also uproot and burn infected plants, which is referred to as roguing. Next we have is angular leaf spot or brown and white spot disease caused by fungus, and the mode of transmission is through infected cuttings. And then the white leaf spot is common in Ghana as compared to brown leaf spot. So it's usually transmitted through infected cuttings. And remember, we have the brown leaf spot and the white leaf spot. So the white leaf spot is common in Ghana, which is as compared to the brown leaf spot. And the symptoms here are there's a production of pale brownish color on the leaves. If you can see, it's like the pale brownish color on the leaves. And the middle of the brown spot may break, giving rise to shoot holes. If you look closely, you can see that the middle, they say this middle of this brown spot may break, which could give rise to shoot holes. Now, how is it controlled? By spraying with fungicide, Bourdeaux mixture, for example, is a fungicide that you can use to control angular leaf spot disease. We have cassava anthracnose disease, CAD, which is caused by fungus and is transmitted through infected planting cuttings, rain splash, as well as wind. And here you can see appearance of cankers or sore-like lesions, which lesions are like wounds on the stem at the nodes. Look at it, at the nodes. Is that clear? See them at the nodes or along any part of the stem. Now, wilting, or there'll be wilting and leaf defoliation. That's loss of leaves. Now, we also have the way to control it is to grow resistant varieties and also plant healthy planting materials. Farm sanitation can also be a means of controlling it, as the stem and leaves from infected plants after harvesting must be destroyed by burning. We have cassava bud necrosis, which is a fungal disease and is transmitted through infected stem cuttings as well as wind. And here you can see dark or gray patches or necrotic lesions on the stem of the leaves. You can see it. Dark or gray patches or necrotic lesions on the stem of the plant. And how is it controlled? You grow resistant varieties, also plant healthy planting materials, good farm practices, that's good weed control, good planting distance, that's between each crop. Then you should also practice crop rotation. This can help to control cassava bud necrosis. We have root rot disease, which is some cases caused by fungus or bacteria. Now, this disease is caused by excessive rain, and the symptoms here is wilting of leaves accompanied by defoliation. That the leaves no longer stand erect as if they are firm. They now drop and they kind of droop, Then the shoot or stem usually dies back. Then the swollen roots, there will be swollen roots with colored inner tissues, as you can see. See, the inner tissues are colored. There will also be root rot. The roots tend to rot. So these are the symptoms. And how do you control it? By growing resistant varieties, planting healthy planting materials, and farm sanitation, that's the stem and leaves from infected plants after harvest must be destroyed by burning. Early harvesting is also necessary here. Crop rotation will help, and also avoid waterlogged areas. Now, cassava witch's broom, CWB, is caused by virus, Candidatus phytoplasma. Now it's transmitted through infected planting materials as well as insect vectors. Now, if you look at this cassava plant, you can see that it's not healthy. Now you can see there's unnecessary duplication of shoots. Look at it here. You can see unnecessary duplication of shoots. There's also yellowing and reddening of the leaves, shrinking of the internodes. That's the space between one node and another node on the stem. It will be reduced. Shrinking of internodes, underdeveloped growth, and smaller leaves will be present, and is controlled by uprooting and burning infected plants and also controlling the vectors, which is leaf hoppers. How do you control that? Using pesticides. So now let's look at yam. We're done with cassava. Yam, the diseases here are yam mosaic caused by virus, yam mosaic virus. We have yam dry rot caused by nematodes, Scutellonema bradis. That's the nematode disease, Scutellonema bradis. Then we have the leaf spot, which is caused by fungi, Cercospora species. Now, yam mosaic disease is caused by virus and is spread by pressing and sucking insects. You can see the symptoms here are mosaic patterns and chlorosis on the leaves. Chlorosis is loss of the green pigmentation, that's chlorophyll formation. Then you can see the stunting of affected plants. That's the plant actually loses its green coloration. Then the stunting of affected plants. And how is it controlled? You need to control the insect vectors, and you can also grow resistant varieties. We have leaf spot, which is a fungal disease, Cercospora leaf spot, and it's spread by wind, and the symptoms are dead spots are seen on the leaves, as you can see here, and they control it by using appropriate fungicide. We have yam rot caused by bacteria, and here is spread by splashing of rain and by insects as well. And the symptoms here is liquid oozes out from the infected tuber, as well as white-brown liquid which emits with a pungent odor, and is controlled by destroying all affected yam tubers. You can also apply aldrin dust and practice crop rotation as well. Anthracnose is another fungal disease of yam caused by fungus Coletotrichum biosporoides. Coletotrichum biosporoides, and the symptoms here are spots or lesions of various colors are seen on the leaves. You can see spots or lesions of various colors are seen on the leaves. And how is this controlled? By early staking, practicing crop rotation, growing resistant varieties, using appropriate fungicides. Okay. Now let's go to potato. Here we have witch's broom as well, which is a fungal Phytoplasma basidiomyces. Okay, so this witch broom affects potato as well as cassava. Now, Phytoplasma or basidiomyces, and it's transmitted by insects, leaf hoppers, or through potato seeds that are infected. And the symptoms here is the leaf roll up and have a yellow margin. If you can see, the leaves are rolling up here as against these leaves here, and they have a yellow margin. There's also stunted growth, and for the prevention and control, there's no cure. Now, diseases of fruits. We have orange, which is citrus gummosis or collar disease. It's a fungal disease caused by fungal Phytophthora citrophora. We have tristeza or dieback disease caused by a virus. We have scab, fungal disease, Sphaceloma falsate. We have anthracnose, which is a fungal disease, Cleosporium. We also have citrus melanose, which is a fungal disease, Phomopsis citri. So these are some of the diseases that affect orange. And starting with citrus gummosis, which is also collar disease. It's caused by fungus Phytophthora species, and it's transmitted through by airborne spores, and also through the soil. Now, what are the symptoms? There's rotting of the bark near the ground. There's drying and cracking of the bark. This is the bark of the tree. There's also release of gum. As you can see on this tree, there's release of gum. The leaves also become yellow and die at the tip backwards. And how is it prevented and controlled? By planting resistant varieties. You should also bud citrus plants. That's also a method of asexual propagation. Then you should also ensure there's proper farm drainage. Tristeza or dieback disease is a viral disease, and it's transmitted by insects, black aphids precisely, and infected cuttings or buds. And the symptoms here is that the leaves become reduced in size and drop excessively. There will also be yellowing of terminal shoots. That shoots at the tip, growing at the top of the plant. Then there will also be veins on the leaves will clear, and the twigs will die back. Twigs are like young branches coming out with die back. Then the back of the stem will thicken, and the wood underneath the bark will show brown pits and streaks. These are the symptoms you observe in tristeza or dieback disease, and it's prevented and controlled by spraying the nursery plants with insecticides to kill the vectors, that's the black aphids, and you can also uproot and burn infected plants and use resistant varieties as well. So this is how tristeza looks like, both on the leaves and the fruit. Then we have citrus scab disease caused by fungus Elsinoi falsati. Now, it's spread by rain splash and is also airborne. And then the symptoms here are the leaves become wrinkled. You can see this leaf is wrinkled. Then rat-like or raised light brown pustules or scabs are seen. You can see they are raised, that's bumpy, light brown, look at it. Pustules or scabs are seen on the fruit. Then you spray fungicide to control it. Now let's go still on fruits. We have banana. Here we have Panama disease caused by fungus Fusarium oxysporum. We have leaf spot or Secotoca disease caused by fungus Mycosphaerella muscolas. Mycosphaerella muscolas. Then we have bunchy top, which is also caused by virus. Now, starting with the Panama disease, is caused by fungus Fusarium oxysporum. Is spread through the soil. It's a soil-borne disease. And the symptoms here are that you notice yellow erect leaves or the leaves that collapse at the petiole. Of course, the petiole is the connection between the leaf blade and the stem or the trunk. Leaf blade and the trunk. Of course, they will be collapsed at the petiole but without going yellow. So the yellow erect leaves or the leaves that collapse at the petiole without going. So they may be leaves that may not be yellow but they will collapse at the petiole. Remember, the petiole is the connection, the tissue, the organ between the leaf blade and the trunk or the stem. Now the leaves begin to wither and fall off. How is it controlled? You grow resistant varieties. You can also spray with fungicide. See how Panama disease looks like. See the petiole here. This is the petiole. You know, the banana has a false stem, which is pseudo stem. Look at the petiole, look at the leaf blade. So sometimes they could just break off. Okay. Now we have leaf spot or Secotoca disease. It's caused by fungus Mycosphaerella muscolas and it's transmitted through airborne. It's as an airborne disease, and you can notice there will be greenish yellowish streaks parallel to the veins. Look at it. See the vein. These are the veins. If you look closely, and these streaks, this greenish yellowish streak, are parallel, just side by side with the veins. There will also be reduced yield and premature ripening of fruits. Now, how is it controlled? You could use low volume of oil spray or oil fungicide with water emulsions, and you can also spray with body ox mixture. Bunchy top is another viral disease of banana and is spread by pressing and sucking insects, and the symptoms here are stunted growth. The leaf edges will curl. Look at the leaf edges. You can notice that they are curling. They're curled. Okay? They curl over. Then you could also control it by practicing good field sanitation and removing and burning affected plants. Remember what the term given when you remove and burn affected plants is called roguing. Okay, so this is bunchy top. You can notice the curls. You can notice the curls of the leaves. Oil palm, still on fruits. We have anthracnose caused by fungus, freckle or leaf spot caused by fungus, Cercospora species, blast disease also caused by fungus. So here we have anthracnose caused by fungus, and it's caused by too close planting of seedlings when they don't keep proper spacing. Then the symptoms here are black and brown patches on the leaves in the pre-nursery. And how is it controlled? By spraying fungicides, Captan, Peronix, or Kuman. And we should also ensure adequate spacing within the pre-nursery. You have blast disease. It's a fungal disease caused by insects, Wisteria mica. And the symptoms here are yellow colored leaves with some brown patches on the leaves of the seedlings in the nursery, and it may lead to death of the seedlings. And how do you control blast disease? You have to ensure there's regular watering and mulching of your nursery. What does it mean to mulch? Mulch is to put a form of cover, which could be grasses or polythene, to control moisture, loss of moisture, or to retain moisture in the soil. You can spray at regular intervals with Captan, and you should also control the vector, which is insects, Wisteria mica. Now, freckle disease also affects oil palm, and it's a fungal disease spread by wind or air. And you can see there are brown spots on the leaves of the seedlings in the nursery. This is a nursery here. You can see brown spot on the leaves, and it's controlled by spraying with fungicide like Captan or Peronox, or you remove the affected plants. We have Ganoderma disease or trunk rot or basal stem rot, BSR, which is a fungal disease spread within the soil. It could be airborne, that's wind. It could also be by insects as well as nematodes. And the symptoms here are rapid wilting fronds. That's the part of the leafy area of the tree. That's the fronds are like the part of the canopy of the tree. There will also be death of the affected plants. Now you can see it's controlled by avoiding infested soils. So that's when it comes to if nematode is the means by which it's transmitted. Then proper soil sanitation as well as burning of all infected trees. You could also practice crop rotation and ensure that, especially in the pre-nursery and at the nursery stages, that should be ensured that that is controlled at that stage. Now for fiber crops, we have cotton. Here we have black arm bacterial blight or angular leaf spot caused by bacteria Xanthomonas malvacearum. We have damping off caused by fungus. We have leaf curl caused by virus, and we have anthracnose caused by fungus Calototrichum gospi. These are the various diseases that affect cotton, and starting with bacterial blight of cotton, we have Xanthomonas. Now, Viserium is transmitted through seeds, so you need to make sure you plant healthy seeds. And the symptoms here are production of water-soaked lesions on the leaves and the balls of the cotton. There's also death of the leaves and branches, shedding of young balls. Balls is a part of the cotton plant from where the lint is gotten. There will also be premature, lint is that whitish part of the cotton which is processed to give us cotton that we know for in our medical field, where we have cotton for cleaning our wounds and so on. There's also premature opening of balls. Of course, cotton is also used for fabrics as well anyway. Now, we have to talk about control here. You have to plant resistant varieties as well as practicing good field sanitation. This will help to control this disease. Then we should also destroy cotton plants debris in closed seasons. This is where you're not cultivating. At that point, where you have harvested and you're not cultivating till before the next season, you make sure you destroy all debris, leftover parts of the previous planting season. We have damping of Pythium vexan, which is a fungal disease transmitted through soil as well as irrigated water. And here there's rotting of the stem and the roots at and below, at the surface and below the surface, and is controlled by spraying fungicides or plant fungal treated seeds. Soil sterilization will also help, as well as farm sanitation. Cotton leaf curl virus CLCUV is caused by a virus and of course transmitted by insects. Silver leaf whitefly Bemisia tabaci, and you can see the leaves curl. You can look at it, you can see the leaves are curling. The growth will stop suddenly. There will also be reduced yield. And how is this controlled? You plant resistant varieties, you practice good field sanitation as weeding, and ensure that the vector is controlled using pesticides. Anthracnose disease. This affects cotton as well. Fungus is a fungal disease, Glomerella cingulata. Now the mode of transmission is through infected seeds, rain splash, as well as moist wind. And the symptoms here are small reddish or brown circular spots or lesions. Look at it, small reddish or brown circular spots or lesions are seen on the leaves. There will be wilting and death of seedlings. And how do you control it? Destroy infected plants and spray copper-based fungicides. Disease of vegetables. Now, we have tomato, we have okra. Here we have root knot disease of Fusarium wilt, is a nematode disease. And root knot disease, nematode disease. We have Fusarium wilt, which is a fungal disease, Fusarium oxysporum. We have leaf spot, which is a fungal disease. We have powdery mildew, which is a fungal disease, which is Erysippe species. Then we also have mosaic disease, which is a viral disease. So starting with root knot disease of tomato or okra is caused by nematodes and is spread by nematodes in the soil. And here we have knotting of the roots. We have retarded growth, you can see, and early death of the plants. Then for the control, you need to practice crop rotation. You should also use resistant varieties and treat the soil with nematicides that help to control nematodes. For damping of disease of okra, is caused by fungus and is transmitted through infected soils. And the symptoms here, the cells become waterlogged. There's gradual wilting of plants and also death of the plants. Spraying of appropriate fungicide will help to control this disease. Charcoal rot of okra is a fungal disease, Microphomina fasciolina, And here there's discoloration or gray ash. If you look at this, of the stem at the soil line, the leaves may wilt and drop. And how is it controlled? By practicing crop rotation. We have powdery mildew of tomatoes, and it's a fungal disease, Padosphaera xanthi. Now, the symptoms here is there will be initially pale yellow spots which will appear on the leaves, and later on the powdery white covering will now be seen on the leaves, as you can see in the picture here. Powdery white spots are seen on the leaves. And how is this controlled? By using of overhead irrigation, early planting, and also using appropriate fungicides. We have septorial leaf spot of tomato, which is a fungal disease, Septoria lycopessicae. The symptoms here are disease appear first on the lower leaves, then leaf spots appearing as yellow areas that later become circular with gray and dark borders. Look at it. So they said leaf spots appearing as yellow areas that later become circular with gray and dark borders. So there's falling of the leaves, and it's controlled by crop rotation and weed control. We have Fusarium wilt of tomato, caused by fungus Fusarium oxysporum. And here there's yellowing of older leaves, as you can see in the picture, wilting of the plant, there's defoliation, loss of leaves, stunted growth, and little or no fruits develop. And it's controlled by planting resistant varieties, uprooting infected plants, and crop rotation. We have tomato mosaic disease caused by a virus, and the mode of transmission is piercing and sucking insects. And of course, there's mosaic coloration on the leaves, as you can see, low yield as well, and it's controlled by getting rid of the insects, by killing the vector using insecticides, and you can also uproot and burn infected plants. Next, we have is onion twister, which is a fungal disease, and it's transmitted through infected soil, water splash, as well as infected bulb. The bulb is the propagating material for onions. The symptoms here are twisting of the leaves, gray patches on the leaves, reduction in yield, death of the plant, and is controlled by growing resistant varieties, practicing crop rotation, spraying fungicides, and early planting. Powdery or downy mildew of onions is a fungal disease transmitted through air, and the symptoms are pale green leaves, as you can see, stunted growth, and is controlled by spraying fungicides. Purple blotch of onions is a fungal disease, Alternaria porree. Now you can see the method of transmission is by airborne, also plant debris. Remember, the plant debris refers to the previous planting materials left over after harvest. Then you can also see the symptoms are lesions on the leaves. Look at the lesions. The leaves die from the tip backwards. There's whitish minute dots, as you can see. Whitish minute dots on the leaves with irregular chlorotic areas. Remember, chlorosis is loss of the green coloration on the leaves. You need to spray fungicide and use resistant varieties to control purple blotch of onions. Onions leaf blight or blast or Xanthomonas leaf blight is caused by bacteria Xanthomonas axonopodis, and is transmitted by rain splash and wind. And the symptoms here, the leaves tips die backwards. As you can see, the leaf tips here are dying backwards. Even here too. See here as well. And then you need to spray bactericides to control this. Botrytis leaf blight or spots, or botrytis leaf spot of onions is caused by fungi, Botrytis squamosa, and of course, please take note of the spelling Botry, T-R-Y, Botrytis squamosa. Now, the mode of transmission is through rain, splash, or wind, and then the symptoms here are small leaf spots or lesions. Look at it. As you can see on the picture here, small leaf spots or lesions, and the leaf tips die backwards as well, and is controlled by proper farm sanitation. Okay, so in this lesson, let's just have a recap. We learned that disease is a deviation or departure of a plant from the normal state of health, presenting marked symptoms or outward visible signs. We also define pathogens as disease-causing organisms which pass through a regular cycle of development and reproduction, and we looked at various diseases that affect the different major crops like cereals, legumes, tubers, fruits, vegetables, and we looked at them in details. So we've come to the end of this class, so let's just um, go through some questions that we looked at that we need to help us to actually have a better understanding or to test our knowledge base. Okay, starting with this question, it says the diagram below illustrates a crop. Of course, that's okra, and is used to we should use this diagram below to answer the question below. I said a disease that could affect the illustrated crop. Here, of course, the options here are swollen shoot, which affects cocoa, smut, which affects maize and rice. We have a rosette, which affects groundnut. Root knot affects okra. So the answer here is root knot. Next we have is damping of disease of tomato could be controlled by staking, supplying, thinning, pruning. Supplying is replanting of seeds that fail to grow. Thinning is reducing of seedlings that are at a stand that are more than what is required. Pruning is removing of unwanted plants, but staking is relevant for tomatoes and yam. So staking will help to control and prevent contact of the fruits with the soil and so on. So staking is the answer.